I love that. And now, obviously, we've been talking a lot about mindset and preparing yourself to actually get these things done. But when someone like our age or fresh out of college wants to, or excuse me, fresh out of high school wants to get started in multifamily real estate, what are the same steps you took? And now, not everybody's steps are going to be the same, but what are the steps you took that a new beginner, despite the age, could take to get their feet wet and get their, the ball rolling in real estate?
Yeah,
Excuse me, specifically multifamily.
yeah. For multifamily, I think the way that I approached it was first educating myself. I read the best ever apartment syndication book by Joe Fairless. I wanted to get specifically into syndication, so that book was a textbook in in one way because we approached it with reading it first. We took notes. My brothers and I then masterminded over it, sort of taking away the most important pieces and the next steps. And after that, what we took from the book was one, you most likely want a mentor or some type of partner who you can partner with and leverage their track record to be able to get into your first deal. Depending on the number of units you're going after, multifamily is anything over, one door. We were looking at going into larger apartment complexes, and in order
Correct.
to
So
be
more
able to
so
go after
commercial,
those,
right?
correct? Yeah, yeah. Anything over 5 units is commercial. Commercial in particular, I'm talking about multifamily. But when it comes to that, you typically need a certain net worth and liquidity requirement to be able to sign on those loans. But most important for us was to be able to find a partner that we could actually talk to brokers and leverage with. So when we were at first speaking with brokers and cold calling them, they didn't want to take us seriously, and they weren't taking us seriously because we had no track record or experience. But as soon as we started, leveraging our mentor, once we didn't really hire him, we just joined his mastermind group, and it cost money to do that. But we eventually joined a mastermind group, and being able to leverage his track record helped us open the door with a lot of brokers who had heard of him and worked with him. So we were able to start getting deal flow, meaning deals were sent to us, and that really opened the floodgates to being able to look at deals. But through that mastermind group that I joined, I was actually able to get into my first GP deal. And I'll stop there, but I also there's another way that I would approach it differently. So I'm happy to go into that as well.
Yes, please, please, please
Yes,
do.
elaborate on that first deal, please, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So first, like I think to go back as a GP on a big syndication deal, if it's your first deal, unless you find it yourself, which might take a long time because it's not easy to do that, then the best way I think if I were to go back and change things would be to just build a business. Like I like to ask myself, why am I getting into business in the first place? It's not to be a syndicator at first. It's to generate income or do something like become financially free, right? It's not like a certain piece like becoming a syndicator. Syndication
Just
is a great way
signifying
to
moment that
build
said,
wealth.
I want to be a syndicator. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That just struck
No,
home with
you're
me
good.
because it's really crazy the transcending of, you go from one thing to another. And I did the same thing. You started with wholesaling, you moved your way to syndication. My apologies. Didn't mean to
Yeah,
cut you
no,
off.
you're good. And the reason I bring up this point is there's like a video by a guru that we all know, and he made one video the other day where he has three M's. It's make money, manage money, and then multiply money. As a syndicator, you can make money and build wealth. It just takes time. It's not a get rich quick scheme. If you can build a business that can generate a lot of income and then go and buy multifamily, you don't even need to syndicate it. You can just buy it yourself. But you can also bring more value to partners, and you don't even need to raise that much money if you can put your own money into the deal. So, my opinion, I would first focus on building a business that generates income and then start syndicating after that. I kind of went from wholesaling for a year and then syndication. And I'm not saying I'm going back to single family just because it's like a bad thing. I'm actually doing a lot of fix and flips right now because syndication is a little slow, which is one of the major reasons I'm doing it is so I can generate a lot of cash and then go and buy more multifamily. And now I have the skill sets to raise money for my fix and flip company, and I can always syndicate if I find a good deal. But I'm not pressured to buy bad deals because I need to generate money. Like if I'm not doing deals in syndication, I'm not making any money or any more money. And my goal is to obviously hit my first goals, which is to retire my mom and to retire myself. and then obviously build a portfolio and build a business. But I forget what your first question was, but I wanted to touch on the different approach I would have.
No, awesome. I mean, the first question was just elaborating like the specifics on your first deal. Like, how did that look and how was it structured and how was
Yep.
the closing and everything and
Yeah, like just walk us through it. Walk us
Yeah.
through your first deal. What did the returns look like? How much money did you have to raise for it, etc.
the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So I do a lot of 506B deals where we're not legally allowed to market. Now these all closed, but just to protect myself, I won't go into returns. I'll touch on certain high level things, and I'll tell you how I found the deal. So, in regards to the first deal, it was under 550 units, over 100 units. It was a Class C deal in Jacksonville, Florida. I found the deal through a partner who actually got it under contract himself. I was a GP on the deal. It came from my mentorship called Think Multifamily, and I was just cold calling in the group. I had networked with the guy who was in the group. He was what I call like a lead sponsor, someone that finds deals. And I then went to an event with the mastermind group, met with him in person, was just networking. And then a few weeks later after the event, I hit up my mentor and asked him if he knew of any projects going on that I could help with. And what he said was, yeah, this guy named Ricardo has a deal. So I reached out to him, and he eventually told me, yeah, man, we have this deal in Jacksonville. I'm looking to bring on some partners. Let me know if you're interested. So I was like, yeah, I would be. We ended up helping with some marketing pieces. On that one, I'm a co-GP, so I'll go visit the property a few times a year, and then we also get on a lot of calls. The cool thing about being on a GP team is you get access to a lot of things, obviously, that you wouldn't if you were just a normal LP. So, like being the GP, you have an active role, and you get to learn a lot, especially on your first deal. So that's how I came across that one. Eventually, to fast forward, we ended up doing three more as a co-GP, and then we finally did our first as a lead sponsor towards the end of last year. And happy to walk you guys through that one too. But all the deals we've done have been in the Southeast. Two have been in Florida, two were in Atlanta, and then one was in Waco, Texas. So that's a little bit more Midwest.
That's beautiful. I love that you went into those other ones and how you were able to actually sponsor your own deal, and it didn't obviously time wise over a year's span, it didn't take you that long, but the amount of work that you had to put in must have felt like years, all of that effort and crossing of fingers to make sure that you get to the finish line must have made it feel like years. And I know that's definitely what we're dealing with, where in this past year, to go back on like you saying build a business and everything, we've been getting more secure with our wholesaling business. So that's where we're building a
Awesome.
business. And with multifamily itself, it can take a long time, but the actual process of finding the right deal, finding the
Hmm.
partners, possibly raising the money, this is all taking time. And at the end of the day, it can be done within, 3 to 6 months, but if you don't have all the pieces together, it could
yeah.
end up taking you years. Now, what I took away from what
Yeah.
Jeffrey said is that he was able to not have all the pieces together, but used his network and used the people around him
Ding ding
to
ding.
make it happen quicker than usual.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have the liquidity, you don't have to have the net worth. You can grow to that so that you can end up sponsoring your deals, but it's
You gotta
leverage
talk. Yeah.
leverage that network. You got to meet people, and that's what we've been doing. Actually, Jeffrey, we have this one partner of ours. His name is George Roberts. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just
Actually,
had
yeah,
him
I
on
know.
last week, and
Awesome.
he's been our he hasn't been our sponsor, but we've been building that relationship with him. That we have this deal down in Florida that you actually might be interested in if you want to raise some money
Yeah.
for it. We wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, not at all.
It's down in Miami. I know you don't really do down that south, but it's a good deal. So after all of this, I'll send you over the underwriting, and
Yeah.
you know maybe we can make something happen. But
Yeah, man.
aside from that, I think that the biggest thing that we as young investors can take away from all of this is truly just leveraging. Leverage, leverage,
Mm.
leverage. It doesn't even matter if you're young.
That's
It,
your
it
key
just
word.
matters if you just started. leverage the people you know around you, leverage the people you have around you to grow
Yeah.
quickly. Like Jeffrey said, it would also be better to probably have a cash flowing business before
Yeah.
getting started into syndication. That not only will help with your network and who's around you and how you can partner and who you could partner with, but like he said, the cash flow.
Yeah.
Now that may be easier said than done, but at the end of the day, the process that you even going through is conditioning you. It's getting you
Mm.
prepared for when those millions do come in. Hey, we were already running and operating a business on the 5-figure, 6-figure level. Now we're here in the millions. We're doing, 100 unit, 200, 500 unit deals. We're ready for this though. We've
Yeah,
already been conditioned for this. So
exactly.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to think of. A lot of people might think they need to know everything before doing it, and as an entrepreneur, we don't know everything, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are successful know that. But that's why, like they say, Robert Kiyosaki says the A students work for the C students because the A students think they need to know everything
Yeah.
and they actually never
All
do
right,
anything.
man.
The C students, one, know they don't know everything, but two, are willing to take action without knowing everything. That's why they're successful because they're willing to fail. So
yes, sir.
the book behind me called "Who Not How" literally talks about you don't really need to know how to do it. All you need to know is who, someone that knows how to do it, and that's exactly how I approach everything. I like to think that I can control a small amount of things in the world, right? In my life, it's simple. One of the biggest ones is action and what I actually do with my time. One of the biggest, most important things I do every single day is talk to people. It's very simple, but it's one of the harder things to do in business because it can be scary. There can be rejection. Things can go bad. You can mess up. You can get nervous. But I just pick up the phone and whatever I need, whether it's money, deals, knowledge, I can just look at my contact list and call someone, and I can probably find all of the things I just said now because I took a lot of action in the past. But still, it doesn't mean that it's still there, sitting there, waiting for me to just grab it whenever I need it. I still need to call someone and then pitch and learn how to sell. But all these things don't happen if I never make the call. So it's cool that you don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to do a little bit of small things. And honestly, they're really simple to do, but they can sometimes be the most difficult things to do.
Yes.
For real.
Something simple is not easy.
Yeah.
Something
Yo,
simple is not easy.
it's so true.
Jeffrey, can you please tell us a little bit more about your current portfolio and, what I wouldn't say your net worth is, but how much do you have assets under management? How many
Yeah.
buildings do you own? What type of buildings, etc.
For sure. So Donut's Investment Group is in a part of 5 deals so far. We have, as I mentioned, 2 in Atlanta, 2 in Jacksonville, Florida. One of them technically is a portfolio, so it consists of 200, almost 300 units. The other one is, as I mentioned, a little under 150 units. And then the other 2 in Atlanta make up close to 500, somewhere around there. I won't go into specific number of units, but I think it might be on my website anyway. So if you
He
want to
wants
look
to
at
be
that, you can. But
modest.
well, you can add up the numbers, so it may not be too modest. But the other one is a little under 200 units. And the thing is, with a team like these things, obviously, if you've never done a multifamily deal, it can sound very crazy and all. But I think, as we all talked about, you didn't say it, but in other words, you are who you surround yourself with. So by just going to these events and joining these mastermind groups, you start to see thousands, I kid you not, thousands of people who are in ownership of large multifamily complexes and have thousands of units as a GP. So you start to see so many people do it. You start to think, honestly, some of these people are really smart. Some, questionable, and you start to think that like I can do it. If they can do it, I think I can do it too, or at least I can try to do it. And then you start to realize, well, it actually seems like there's a high likely chance that I can get this done. And then you do it. And you're like, why can't I do this 10 more times? Why can't I do this 30 times a year? See what I'm saying? So it all starts to happen once you just start simply, maybe not so simple, but just by getting into those rooms.
Get
And it's up to you to
1%
figure out
better
how you can
every
do that.
day.
Put yourself in the right rooms, get
Yeah.
1% better every day. There's actually this
Yeah.
tattoo that I want to get. It's called Kaizen. It's a Japanese saying. It's 2 words. I forget what the 2 words mean on their own, but the tattoo itself means like onward progression, like a daily progression towards getting better. And how
Mm.
Asia just said,
1%.
1% better every day. So that's actually something I
Yeah,
stick
yeah,
to and work on
I
myself.
love
Just
that.
like you said, with, going to the gym and everything, that's the biggest thing I took in my life, is just working 1% better on myself mentally, spiritually, and physically, and watch how everything else has began falling in place.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. And I don't know if I answered your question directly. So I'll say over a little over 1,000 units on the GP side for multifamily. We own a few rentals on the single family side, and our fix and flip business is taking off too. So we're doing. We don't actually own those. We do own them, but we'll eventually sell them, and that's always the goal. So right now we have like maybe six or I think five current deals, and we're looking to do like next year we're trying to do 100. This year we'll try to do 20 to 30 by the end of the year. So that's so far what we've been focused on up until this point.
that's fantastic. And it definitely helps you too, where even though you not went backwards, but started with the more difficult thing, I feel like that's definitely going to help you with your business now, being the fix and flip, where you can have that
Mm.
consistency and leverage to do that many deals, because someone would be like, oh, I could do that many deals, but I don't have the resources to do that many
Mm.
deals.
Yeah, you built the
Now,
resources.
yeah, now you have the built resources and partnerships and,
Mm.
capital that you need to do these types of deals. I
Yeah,
think,
the number one. Sorry, go ahead.
no, my bad. I just think that something I don't want our viewers and anyone getting started to get mixed up is that, it's, I lost my train of thought.
You're
You're
good, bro.
rubbing
I
off
got
on
you.
me, bro.
I got you, bro. So what I was maybe I'll come back to you while I go on my tangent. So the number one skill that Robert Kiyosaki says an entrepreneur should have is the ability to raise capital. And one, take a little step behind that. Sales is very important as an entrepreneur because that obviously applies to raising capital. And like you said, I love and I've been in real estate for a few years. I would have thought I would have been further along at this point, but and that could be like way off base, but that's just how I feel. And looking back, a lot of people, like my brother, for example, he'll say, "Oh man, we should have just stuck to single family and things like that." And obviously, I'm like, well, one, it's not like we haven't done anything in multifamily, but two, do you understand how important it was for us to go through that and learn how to raise money, and not only learn how to do it, but build a platform that can actually do it now moving forward. We can now raise capital, and when we look back, if we would have just stuck with it, I don't know if we would have been able to learn how to do it to the extent that we can do it now. And now that we're switching over, sort of not switching over, but now opening up a new branch within our energy and company where we're doing a lot of fix and flips, we can raise a lot of capital to do that. And I have investors ready to go. And if anything, I really understand what investors are looking for, right? So they'll look for a certain yield or return when it comes to whatever. Multifamily offers a certain return. I can offer them another certain return. And I know why they would be willing to invest in this because I have that knowledge now. So all of that, one to say, it's an interesting piece to like go through things, and you don't always get compensated financially. But what my twin brother loves to say, and Robert Kiyosaki taught him this, was the smart, in my opinion, like the really good entrepreneurs early on know that you don't need to learn. Sorry, you don't want to work for money. You want to work for knowledge and experience and skills. And I think that's what we were doing over the last 3 years was building that skill set. Because at this point, it's really like how fast can we run this up kind of
Rich dad
mindset
poor dad.
versus I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm scared.
Absolutely.
That's the rich dad poor dad mindset right there. Absolutely, man. That's what I was saying before. Like education, we're told that we got to just go to school and you get a white, picket fence and do what we got to do. But we're not understanding, hey, going through the pain, the punishment, the learning, the experience, actually
Mm,
owning a business and maybe being bad at it for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Until you get it together, that is going to be
yeah.
your best teacher. That's going to be your best lesson. So,
Hmm.
young investors, just please do not be afraid to dive in. Do your due diligence, like, research, go to these networking events, but definitely
Hmm.
do not be afraid. The first step is just taking a damn step, is just
Mm,
get it going, man. So beautiful, man.
All right, I have
100%.
one or two last questions,
Please.
and then I think we're gonna start wrapping it up because we're gonna be hitting that hour mark.
Yeah.
So this is going to be really tailored towards, like, I guess, the market. Since the markets can be volatile and unpredictable, how do you approach risk management for your deals on both sides, the fix and flip and the multifamily?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few different approaches that we have. So for multifamily, I think that for right now, since interest rates, and what the reason for the market we're in right now, I have a few reasons why I think it's risky. One, I think prices are still too high in regards to what sellers are asking for. So making sure that you're buying it at a good cost basis, meaning what you're paying price per door, that's important because you want to understand who your end buyer is before you buy something, who's going to be buying it. If you're planning on selling, which we are, let's say at 6 years, we plan on selling, you want to understand who they are and what they would be looking in or what you're projecting them to buy it at. So if you're buying something that's really old, let's say a 60s product, and you're assuming they're going to be buying it at like a $200,000 price per door, that is pretty aggressive because like that's a lot to pay for something that old. Especially maybe 6 years, you just don't know what's going to happen. So I think just understanding who your end buyer is and making sure you're buying it at the right price today is one way that you can mitigate risk. I think right now prices are still too high, so that's why I think there's some risk in the market when you're looking at that. And then two, I like to buy things at cash flow from day one. So if I'm like buying something that is not cash flowing or barely breaking even, some investors make a lot of money because they understand that business model. It's what they do, and they're willing and able to take that risk. Personally, we just aren't willing to do it, so I'm not really looking for deals like that. So when I buy a deal that's cash flowing, it's a little bit less risky for my investors.
Yeah.
And then third, I would say we do like to look at newer assets, so 1980s vintage, meaning when it was built,
Yep.
or newer, B class in a area that has a median household income of $50,000 or more. The reason that is obviously less risky than going after a C class product in a, let's say, lower income area, is because of the demographic of the residents living there. It's just less likely that they're going to be
Paying.
troublesome and less likely to actually be delinquent on your asset. And at the end of the day, it's a business, so you're looking to have the highest income possible with the least amount of expenses, which will overall increase your net operating income, NOI, and increase the value. So that's for multifamily. For fix and flips, we like to, for both, I guess, we like to be in the right areas. Obviously, location is important in real estate. So North Carolina is where I invest heavily for single family. Also multifamily, we look here, but hard to find. The Southeast is a growing area. There's a lot of jobs, a lot of people moving here, and where that goes, typically, that is a leading factor for rental demand and housing demand. And as long as there's demand for something and anything, whatever business you're in, there's a little bit less of a chance that you're not going to be able to successfully implement your business plan, which for us is to increase rents or just have some type of value add component to our deals for single family and multifamily. For multi, there's small things like being under a certain price point. Typically, the average American can afford a house under like $490,000 in this environment based on what they make on average. So as long as I'm under a 350 to 400K on average ARV after repair value, then I think there's a big enough buyer pool, meaning number of people that can actually buy the house for it, that it increases my chances of me being able to sell it pretty quickly. And then there's small things on the acquisition side of single family, like when the property was built, they like to be 1950 or newer. It just decreases the chances of the house needing too much work. And then also running my numbers. If the numbers don't make sense, I just don't buy it for single family. Um, Knowing the contractor, if they're using the same one, typically you just have a really good relationship with them. So you can kind of project what they're going to charge you. And obviously you walk it with them. And then location. So like one thing on Zillow that I look at is how fast things are selling. If it takes like 5 days for things to sell, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of demand for it right now. And to last thing, most important out of everything is just to stay educated with real estate. It's very simple. I just read articles. Like I take like an hour a day, maybe 45 to an hour, just to read on the economy, on real estate. Just by simply doing that, and half the time, let's say sometimes, like some days I'm not feeling it, I'll just still read it, and sometimes I'm like, "What did I just read?" Like I was just zoning out. But like it's the small things, man. Like you just stay in it, immersed in it. Like and the Bible talks about it, like being immersed in these kinds of things. You won't. You literally subconsciously, one way or the other, you're going to take something away. And if you're doing this every single day, you're not only staying in tune with what's going on in the market, which will mitigate risk to answer your question, but it will also help you stay on the edge and kind of have that competitive advantage because there's not a lot of people that do that. So the
Mm-hmm.
more educated you can be with what's going on today, the quicker you can react to certain things. Like, let's say I'm facing flipping a house and I see that uh, there's a lot of inventory. Let's say Blackstone or one of these REITs, just they do a lot of single family investing. Let's say they just listed like 100,000 houses that they were Airbnb and they can't rent anymore, so they're just going to sell it all in North Carolina. I'm like, okay. I tell my brothers, yo, they just listed 100,000 houses. The supply just went up by a lot, and it's simple supply and demand. That means that if we should probably halt and see how the market reacts before we buy anything else. Small things like that that I wouldn't have known if I wasn't educating myself. So those are like the things that we mitigate and how.
That was fantastic. I think that was perfect. Um, One other question I have for you is to, I guess, segue into risk and, or I'll just say, what's the toughest thing you've dealt with in your business so far? What's the biggest risk you've taken? And what can someone as a new investor expect to be one of their, I guess, first hurdles that they might have to overcome when starting?
Yeah, I'd say in general, the biggest risk I've taken, it's not been one thing, it's been doing it multiple times, using other people's money. That's a big risk because you are literally risking your reputation with that person, someone else's, obviously, their hard earned money. That's, I think, something that you should never take lightly. You should treat it better than you treat your own money. And sometimes things don't go as planned. That's just something that you have to be ready for. So the hardest thing that sometimes you have to do is if things aren't going as planned, you have to, good or bad news, you have to share that with the person that you took their money from. So I'm not saying it's something that it's not worth it because more times than not, hopefully it goes well for you, but it's something that you should be prepared for. And I'm not sure what the second part of your question was, but some things that I've learned from it has been communication is very, very important. And it's also a pretty good idea to work with people who are savvy and sophisticated if
Hmm.
you're going to be taking their money, because then you can have some pretty high level conversations with them as to why certain things are happening. Because chances are, eventually, if you're raising capital in anything for long enough, hopefully this never happens, but certain things will not go as planned, even if it's not bad. It could just be, hey, like we're not going to be able to send out distributions this quarter because interest rates went up a lot and our debt service, although we have a rate cap, our mortgage payment is a lot higher than last month. So rather than sending out money to investors, we're going to keep that in the bank to make sure that we have enough reserves in case something else happens. Small things like that that potentially a non-sophisticated investor may not understand. So that's why it's important to know who you're working with.
That's yeah, that was beautiful. You did kind of miss the second part of the question, I think, but that was all right.
I thought so.
That was perfect. I think that answered my question and gave the viewers some good insight.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you've been giving us gem after gem on this show. We have to absolutely just thank you so much and just applaud everything you have just given us and shared with us just today. Because
and accomplished too,
yeah, and accomplishing your own right, absolutely, it's really amazing to even be on this call with you right now, man, and really just kind of just going back and forth and just hearing your story and everything you're going through, man. So, where can our viewers find you? Is my last question.
Yeah, you can visit our website at www.donisinvestmentgroup.com /check. Sorry, that's the website. And then our checklist that my partner created to help any person that's looking to passively invest in a deal, just to vet the opportunity. You can visit that link and have a backslash behind it checklist. So it just reads www.donisinvestmentgroup.com /checklist. And then I'm on social media personally at Jeffrey Donis on all platforms. And then my company tag on all platforms and profile is at Donis Brothers. And then we also have a podcast at The Real Estate Monopoly.
yeah, everyone go check
So,
out their Instagrams and podcasts. These guys are honestly, I'm not ashamed to say it, a big example as to who I follow and, you know, what gave me the motivation. I remember 3 years ago, I saw your brothers for the first time. I think you popped across my Instagram page. I saw what you guys were up to, and it really I've been following you guys ever since, you know, and I feel like ever since I met you, we've been in great alignment, and that's not just going to be for me. That's going to be for all of you. So make sure you check out their podcast. Make sure you check out their Instagram and really get to know these guys
Yes,
for what they do.
we'll put some links below. So definitely also like, subscribe, share, comments. If you took any of this in and found it very valuable, we'd appreciate hearing from you. So thank you again, Mr. Jeffrey Donis. Woo! This is where our automatic claps come in.
Yeah, the blowhorn.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Or stadium roars and all that. So hey, thank you so much, man. My name is David Smith.
I'm Anthony Ramo.
Biz, the manager, is not in the building, but I'm in the building, baby. Now I'm in the building. Let's go.
And our
This is
our
the
amazing
Checkmate.
guest too.
Yes, and Mr. Jeffrey Donis. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
We love you all. It's been a great one.
This is the Checkmate Real Estate Podcast, and we are signing out. Peace.